PC Perspective videos and podcasts are sponsored by Be Quiet and the all-new PureBase 500DX case. Featuring 3 PureWings 2 140mm fans, ARGB lighting, and USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C connectivity, the PureBase 500DX is optimized for maximum airflow with a sleek yet elegant design. Available now in black and white.
Hey guys, welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 586, I think. Yes. Being recorded on today, May 14, 2020. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
Intel never used 586. They were mad at AMD because other companies were calling their stuff 586s, and that's why they came out with the whole Pentium thing. And so, yeah, I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Sternberg still.
Jim is behind the scenes this week. He is the puppet master. And let's just get right into it because we have a list of news which Jim claims is not very lengthy, but it's like 18 items long, I think, as Google signs me out and I log back in. No, it's 10 items. Okay. Well, hey, let's get into the top stories. Obviously, yesterday, a world's first, as far as I know, kitchen note. No, it was today. I don't know when you recorded it, but we got a kitchen note this morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, pre-recorded GTC keynote from Jensen Huang. Jeremy, you wrote up a brief overview of this with one of the best subtitles in recent memory. And could you guide us through?
Mm-hmm. The insane list of things that have come out. I mean, the big one, and we're going to cover this, exhaustively very quickly, is the brand new DGX A100. It's just going with a brief overview. It is a huge jump from the previous generation. Some of the quotes were saying that essentially, if you were to set up 50 of these DGX1 systems, 5, you would, of the DGX A100, you would be the equivalent of 50 of the previous generation of their GPU HPC computing. But to be honest, the real big thing is that those 5 brand new systems will chug through about 28 kilowatts of power in a set period of time, as opposed to 630 of the previous Tesla version. That's a huge cost savings and, just an amazing leap forward in power efficiency. These are the giant systems that you will be buying if you're an Amazon or a Baidu or one of the very large ones. They also put together the Redstone HGX, which is an add-in card, and it's got 4 A100 GPUs sitting on a single add-in card. So again, you've got this incredibly dense amount of computing power, but it's trimmed down a little bit as far as price goes, because one of the things they did was skip the NVLink that you'll see on those, which with the recent acquisition of Mellanox and some previous things, they've turned this into this giant PCI Express, NVMe over Fabric, just absolutely brilliant thing. But if you're looking for something that's a little more affordable, the card that you're looking at now, the UGX A100, by dropping the NVLink and just sort of setting up a mesh system, you're still getting the vast majority of the computing power that you would with the significantly higher investment, but you're dropping power consumption because you don't have this chip sitting in the middle doing traffic control, and it's significantly smaller. And as I said, we'll go in deeper into the architecture of those. This is just the quick little overview of what the cook's been rocking lately. And they've had a huge win with their Isaacs robotics platform. So this is a neural net training system where you're looking for robots to learn how to most efficiently do a specific industrial job, as well as simulating very, very accurately the parts they're going to be working with, so that you can actually do it virtually, as opposed to bloody well building it from scratch and finding out it didn't work too well. So the BMW group has moved to the Isaacs robotics platform. So this goes beyond just the cars. This is their entire industry will be using these new NVIDIA cards and systems to plot out, the next generation of robotics on the assembly line. And again, it's just the jump in performance and efficiency is amazing. If you're more into networking, we've already talked a little bit about how the Mellanox Connect X6 LX SmartNIC will work. When we originally discussed it, it was about teaming the two 25 gigabits ports that you can see there on the card into a single 50 gigabits connection. It's, to borrow a phrase, pure fucking magic. It's amazing what they can do with this sort of thing. And again, it's going to be dropped into these systems. So because they're literally processing fast enough that you're going to be looking at 500 gigabits and saying, well, we've pretty much saturated that. We're going to need to pick up a few more. These are going to be in PCIe 4, but they will be backwards compatible to PCIe 3. And last but not least is the NVIDIA Clara Healthcore platform. This is something that they've been working on for quite a while. And the idea is that, hospital hardware is terrifying. That you will find Windows NT still powering it. You will find things that have not been updated in God only knows how many years. So the idea with this is that they should be able to use the Clara Healthcore platform to take information from the existing sensors and Internet of Things, make it a smart sensor. The idea being that instead of having a very rough copy of what someone's health records look like, be it EKG, be it pulse rate, whatever, they're able to monitor it and give you exact patterns, figure out what exactly is going on with your patient. And, they're not going to be predicting what sort of treatment you should give them, but it means that they've got a much better idea of what is happening. So the doctor can look at a patient record and say, every night at 3:00 in the morning, his heart seems to go off. And funnily enough, the maid keeps plugging her vacuum in about the same time. But, it's good information to be able to help heal people. Along with this, they now hold the speed record of computing the entire human genome. Remember back, 20 years ago when it took several years to map out the human genome?
Mm-hmm.
Parabricks is doing it in less than 20 minutes, which it's utter insanity. Now, we've already got the human genome mapped, to an extent. We don't know what everything does, but we know where it is. Now, what this does is for any sort of genomics, especially the one that we're all currently aware of that needs to have a lot of research in it, is sequencing RNA and DNA, especially certain RNA virus that's going around right now. And it's going to offer a huge amount of processing power to those that want it. And if you're saying to yourself, well, they're pretty strapped for cash right now, hospitals aren't exactly able to go out and upgrade, pallets of systems. Well, NVIDIA's offering a free 90-day license to any and all that are doing legitimate COVID-19 research right now. So they'll be able to suddenly get their hands on a tool for free that, if they've got the text that can interface with it, has the power to turn what took decades into minutes. So it's very interesting to see how this is going to play out. It's very, very interesting. And as you're going to hear from Josh and Sebastian, the reason it's so amazing is some of the architecture that lies behind all this. Unless they don't want to talk about it.
Well, he's muted.
I was muted, but the numbers are nuts, Josh. The size of this thing, it's 7 nanometers, but look at the size. It's 826 millimeters squared.
Well, I think that's the entire
billion transistors.
Is that the entire package size or just the GPU die?
Thought it was just the die.
Because that seems awful big.
Good question. It does seem awful
It's
big.
hefty.
Yeah, because
Volt
usually
GP100 was 815, so I don't know.
I don't know. I guess I could probably do some inference here and figure things out, but I thought the 800 and some odd was the entire package with the substrate and the interposer, but they call it something different.
Yeah.
See that thing? That looks, I don't know, 35 by 35.
It's in the video. If you watch Jensen's kitchen note, he has one propped up behind him. We could do
Can
that.
We watch the edited version
to the spatulas.
That's the only version that's out
like,
there. It's all edited.
This 800 and some odd is like way past the maximum reticle size of 7 nanometer processes that I know of. I mean, IBM does some stuff up there that, power PCs the size of small dinner plates. Yeah, no, I don't know, kind of drawing a blank, but yeah, 54 billion. But if you think about it, NVIDIA with this generation is really taking 2 process node jumps, because they were TSMC 16 nanometer, which was essentially kind of a 20 nanometer back end with FinFET. And then 12 nanometer was just kind of an optimization of that based on some things that NVIDIA wanted done. But it didn't really shrink the size very much, and performance didn't increase dramatically. Did some? But with this TSMC 7 nanometer, I mean, it's like, jumping from 35 nanometer, good Lord, 32 nanometer to a 14 FinFET. So that's pretty massive. And they've done some interesting things. We haven't, had the deep dive into what all they've changed. They did hint at some things. Probably the one of the more interesting things were how they handled now Tensor Core. Now we thought that, probably they're going to have more Tensor Core units in this. Well, no, it's pretty much exactly the same, even though it's a much bigger chip. But they've got like 5 times the performance out of these Tensor Cores, and it's because they've re-architected them to output a tremendous amount more. I mean, if you kind of saw his little video, I mean, it did this kind of matrix, except so it's, let's say it's 5 wide and about, it's 5 deep and 15 long. It probably isn't that in reality, but anyway, it was only activating really one of those 5 kind of columns. And so you would see the data kind of strobe through that, and then it jumped to the next one, jump to the next one, jump to the next one, and repeat. And so that's kind of a very basic visualization of how the previous Tensor Cores have done. Now they've got essentially all of those columns and rows just going. I know, I'm sorry, columns and rows and matrix. It's not accurate, but I wish that I could visualize that better for you and actually have some real, honest to God,
just paint names. A word picture. Most of our
what Josh is saying is they're not sending us one.
So anyway, basically they're getting true. 5 times the throughput on these new Tensor Cores than they did previously, just because of the way they re-architected and how they do data and how power efficiency works and all of these things. And so it's a big step forward, and they didn't really probably have to increase die size just from the Tensor Cores themselves to get that throughput. I mean, they obviously had to do some things because there were limitations on the previous generation and how that worked. But now it's just smoking it. And they didn't go into, again, a lot of the other things with the other shaded cores. They talked a little bit about the memory. It's all HBM2E, I think is what they were calling it. Yeah, it's like 5,000 bits wide. 1.4 terabyte. Is that, or was it higher than that?
It's the actual number on NVIDIA's site is 1,555 gigabytes per second. So they're calling it 1.6 terabytes per second bandwidth on a 5,120 bit bus.
That's a lot of bandwidth.
There are 108 SMs on this thing too. So 6,912 CUDA cores. Of course, the arrangement of these is if you look at an SM, there's separate 32, like half full precision and double precision cores. So it can be 6912 if you're at full precision, and it's half of that if you're at double precision. The tensor core count is down though. That's the thing. Like I initially saw it went from 640 with Tesla V100 to only 432 tensor cores on this. But these are the new third generation tensor cores, as you just mentioned. They have the bigger matrix. It's like 8x8x4 instead of 4x4x4. So they're supposedly twice as fast.
Yeah, it's a major redesign as opposed to just an upgrade.
Yeah, I think it's more than twice as fast, but anyway. But yeah, it's a tremendous amount more per tensor core than what they were previously able to do.
Yes. And in fact, I did a little Googling, by the way, Josh, and according to the call with reporters that Jensen had before the announcement this morning, it is, in fact, that huge number is the die size. He says it's almost 32 millimeters in one dimension, almost 26 millimeters in the other dimension for just the die. So it's a massive die.
Was it again 32 by what?
26? 26?
28. 26.
Yeah, 832. Wow, that's a big stonking die. Yeah. And it's no wonder why each one of these GGXs costs $199,000.
It's got 8 of those puppies on it.
They only have a paltry 600 gigabytes a second bandwidth between them, though. I mean, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Damn you, Mellanox.
It seems like it would slow it down. Yeah.
Well,
they'll get better. Don't worry.
Yeah.
This is Gen 1 of Ampere. It's okay.
But it's their third gen NVLink. It's in name only is it NVLink. It's not the same, like, you put the bit on the end of your graphics cards. That's NVLink in name only. This is totally different.
Mm.
The other thing that kind of stood out to me, and I got a cat meowing at me. I wish she'd just leave me alone sometimes. But anyway, they went from an Intel platform to AMD. So they're 264 core AMD Rome race server processors that not only give you 128, regular x86 CPU cores. Well, and then 256 threads. But it's the only platform that has PCIe 4.0 available to them. And of course, the new Ampere stuff is all PCIe 4.0. And when you take one of those boxes and you have that kind of base performance in I/O, they also have 15 terabytes of NVMe PCIe 4.0 storage.
You are correct, sir.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of bandwidth in that entire thing. And yeah, AMD was kind of the only company that could provide that. Intel hasn't been able to. And so it's not like AMD is going to sell a tremendous amount of processors with these, because I have no idea how many DGXs ever get sold. I mean, 100,000, maybe most. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect huge numbers, but boy, they're kind of sitting in the catbird seat in terms of features, overall performance, 7 nanometer TDPs. The amount of memory that each one of those can address. I mean, it's just, it's 1 terabyte of regular memory in there, which is beautiful.
But bus bandwidth is a big winner for them here. So I mean,
yeah.
Clearly.
I mean, they've got a lot of PCIe lanes coming off of those. 128 apiece?
Think so.
Don't remember.
I can't remember. My mind is seriously.
It was just
this has been a long.
So many
week.
powers of 2.
Mush.
There's just
there
are just so many powers of 2 out there. It's confusing sometimes.
Yeah,
but hey, we found somewhere where PCIe 4.0 makes a lot of sense, because this will
definitely
you can give it.
Yes.
So,
do you have anything to say to that, Sebastian?
No, I don't. I just want to talk about this Unreal 5 demo.
Okay, let's go to it.
Look, we're not going to get one. It's amazing. They make incredible data center products.
But one last thing, physically, I couldn't help but notice that when they were demonstrating pulling it out of the rack for servicing and like doing an exploded parts diagram, that there was like a mini rack inside of it that multiple other pieces pulled out at a 90-degree angle, and I'm like, I've never seen that.
I thought that was brilliant.
I'm like,
that was
cool.
Just really nice.
It's a dumb thing.
It's a neat design.
It has nothing to do with anything other than I just thought it was neat.
It's almost Apple-esque attention to detail there.
It was clever.
Yeah, it's kind of like. But they were talking about 15 kilometers of optical cable.
Yes,
that they use to span in between a bunch of the DGXs.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of insane.
And one entire hardware store's worth of screws in every unit.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah, that's insane. Kind of the last thing that I took away from this is this gives us a little bit of idea of where we're sitting come fall when the NVIDIA consumer graphics comes out. Obviously, we're going to have smaller chips, less performance, but still, if you look at the jump from the V100 to this, I mean, it's really impressive, and we can kind of expect that kind of jump when the 3080 or whatever the hell I want to call it, 3080 Ti comes out. For the consumer side, it's just going to be kind of ludicrous. I don't know if we're going to see any real increase in memory capacity, and memory speeds are. I think we're still going to be GDDR6 type stuff on 384. Is it a 512-bit bus? I think it's 384, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it would be if it was the full GPU.
Yeah. But they're gonna. Memory's not a big deal at this point because that thing probably has so much cache internal. It's going to be nuts, and it's going to be interesting to finally see an editor's day, an architecture day, where we get to kind of go through more with a fine-tooth comb to see what they've done compared to previous generations and what we can expect. But I think that performance is going to be very, very, very good, and unfortunately, they're probably going to pay. Well, they're going to charge a lot of money for each one.
That's the problem, isn't it?
There's not going to be a whole lot of competition from AMD. I mean, sure, we've got Navi 2 coming out, but I don't think that it's yeah. I mean,
yeah, but if I can get
right now is
70% of the performance for 50% of the price,
that'd be okay then.
Yeah, and knock on wood, it happens. But yeah.
And rumors of much more usable RTX functionality in between software and hardware. So that's going to be nice.
That could be the sleeper thing from this announcement because they're the third generation tensor cores, since the performance is more than double, as they're saying, if they're able to fit the same number of tensor cores in the next generation desktop part that perform more than twice as fast, suddenly RTX becomes a lot more viable, obviously. You don't have to resort to DLSS and upsampling. And I will say I added at as a footnote to the news post about the Ampere A100 is that Market Watch, I saw the quote from the investor call, or I don't know, it was like a press briefing actually, where he said that it was asked if Ampere will replace NVIDIA's Turing and Volta chips on a single platform that streamlines their GPU lineup, and his response was unquestionably, etc. So I mean, it just sounds like they're moving in a direction where this will make it to GeForce, but we will see. Obviously, nothing is forthcoming. There was no announcement about any consumer products today.
But there was, and I was just reminded of something that I needed to bring up.
Yeah.
The more you buy, the more you save. Straight out of Jensen's mouth.
It's true. And by the way, you absolutely need to watch some of these videos just to see the kitchen Like, what's going on in the kitchen? There's
how
like
many spatulas does one man need?
Spatulas.
Spatula City, Spatula City.
And then on the other side of the counter, first we could talk about the kitchen for a while. Like the wooden cutting board with the mysterious circle print on it. Is that a mark from a hot pan? What's going on there?
Yes.
On the counter behind him, there is a graphics card. You can see the box, but if you look closely, because of course these are uploaded in 4K, they're brilliant looking. It's a 2070 Super. The CEO of the company can't get a Titan RTX. What's going on here?
RT 2080 Ti's are on allocation, man. 2080 Ti.
I can't even get an RTX 2080 Ti. So yeah.
Even a 2080.
I'm disappointed that one of our viewers actually knows what model of stove that is.
I saw that.
Okay.
That, and it's apparently built into a shrine, which is interesting.
Do you know that's a 50-pound piece of equipment?
At least
pounds. No, they said it's 50 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now, with it paused, Jim, can we go back there for a second? I want to explore this briefly. Behind the counter, in the background, you can see what looks like a fence, like a barrier. This is a second floor, perhaps.
It's an atrium foyer.
Is this a kitchen on the second floor?
Right. This is the upstairs kitchen.
I think it's the main
spare
floor.
kitchen.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
It's just a walk down, like, to the lower level.
Jensen's a billionaire. He can have whatever he wants.
Sure.
Can't you tell from the
nice
lighting whether
house.
this is ground level or not? We depend on you for these sort of things, Sebastian.
It's difficult to say, because I think he probably had some extra lighting in the room. I'm just saying. I don't think he relied on natural light.
Staged.
He had a camera person. Yeah, it's really. I think it's probably really his house, but it's like his house built into a soundstage. So this was a $500 million set. All right, let's move on to something consumer.
Jim is dying a little
level.
inside.
I know. It's only been half an hour on the first story.
Yeah,
Unreal Engine 5 has been
well.
revealed, allegedly running on a PlayStation 5 live. And I guess it ended up being like 30 frames per second, 1440p, I think is what I read. But it looks unbelievable. Like, I'm struggling to believe this was a PS5. But and Xbox fans are not pleased, to say the least, that this is like PS5 is all over all of these announcements. And all the like Digital Foundry did their breakdown of it. You can watch a video where they're talking to Epic guys, and they're literally taking you on a guided tour through this world and letting you look at the 8K textures on these rocks and move around and change the lighting. And they made a big deal out of some of the natural motion that they're capable of introducing, like predictive footfalls and some of these more natural hand movements they've programmed in, which I didn't really think much of until they showed the girl walking through a doorway and just sort of without thinking, she puts her hand on the door frame as she walks through, and it looked very natural. So they've put a lot of extra time into some of the details that will help make this look more lifelike. I always find walking in games to look kind of stiff. So maybe this fixes everything. I'd love to see some games ported over to Unreal 5 just to look at the difference. But did you guys watch this tech demo? Does it blow you away?
So many triangles.
I'm watching it now, and yeah, that's impressive as hell.
For this, I would be fine with 30 frames a second, especially I was watching this on a high resolution display, and if you pump up the YouTube video goes up to 4K, it looks just astonishing. Like you're looking at what looks like photorealistic textures when they zoom in. So
the other half of this story is that the engine is available without encumbrance up to some sort of $1 million of commercialism. If you develop something with it, it's amazing. I mean, this engine is obviously top notch. The latest console hardware is going to service it really well, even if it is locked at 30 frames. We don't have to go there.
Nice view distance.
But yeah, amazing. So the license arrangement on this is really incredible. What they're doing here is literally, if you build something with this until you make $1 million, it's pretty much unencumbered with no license server. So there's no weirdness going on with your dev boxes and stuff like that, where you couldn't check out your license occasionally due to weirdness. So good on them. I think we're going to see some really interesting games developed with this. So really, they're opening this up so that independent or not well-financed developers can get a crack at high-end world building.
I mean, there's add-ons that do cost money, but you don't need them. And to be honest, at that point that you've broken the $1 million where they start to ask you for licensing, you're doing pretty good. You can probably afford it.
Yeah. So cool.
Unfortunately, when you hit that 1 million mark, you have to pay them $500,000.
Yeah, well,
that's just a rumor. It could be 750. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, you have to spend money to make money, right?
That's true.
We're back to NVIDIA again.
AMD.
No, we're back to AMD. We're back to AMD. So stay the course. We were talking about RDNA 2 graphics, of course, powering the next gen consoles. AMD was quick to. I read a press release from AMD about this. I'm like, wow, AMD's new Unreal Engine 5 on AMD's new PlayStation console. That's amazing. They do let Sony distribute the console for them, though.
Well, it's only fair.
That's a clever turn of a phrase, but sure.
Yeah, I mean, Sony designed the outer shell, I guess, so they can take credit for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of AMD, I don't know if you remember, but what was it? A year and about 4 months ago, the glorious Radeon 7 graphics card was released. Itself,
pour one out for the
consumer.
Radeon.
Yeah, itself a consumer variant with higher clocks of a MI. Was it the MI50? The Radeon Instinct MI50? It was one of the MI cards, MI50 or MI60.
Yeah.
It's Vega 20 GPU, 16 gigabytes of HBM2, and we obviously covered that quite extensively when it first came out, and we had one at launch and benchmarked it, and it was close to the performance of an RTX 2080. It depended on the game, but it could actually beat an RTX 2080. And then the 2080 Super happened, and it kind of fell into obscurity. And it was expensive. It launched at $699, and I don't think they were making a ton of money on it because of all that HBM2. Fast forward to today, or within the last 24 hours or so, we've seen Radeon Pro VII launch. They've taken Radeon 7, and it has a different shroud, and I think slightly lower clocks. Yeah, the peak GPU clock is 1705 megahertz, down from 1750 with the Radeon 7. And the TDP, the board power is lower. I mean, they've I don't know if it's through binning or just through downclocking it, but they've hit a 250 watt target with this. And then, of course, the Radeon 7 had sort of artificially reduced FP64 performance. It was at 1/4. So now it's only at 1/2. So you get double the FP64, 6.5 teraflops up from 3.5. So it's the same thing. It's Vega 20. It's in a different package. It's significantly more expensive, and it has professional level driver support.
I was going to observe that this new card from AMD has a striking resemblance to a slightly underclocked, maybe slightly rerouted, undertuned Apple MPX module. They gained a lot of experience in that space. Similar single precision performance, half the HBM. Memory bandwidth, of course, is the same due to the HBM plussing that up. But I'm going to guess that they probably took some of the technologies and techniques that they had in building out that MPX module and said, we're getting some silicon that is not Apple quality. Let's do something with it. I'm throwing that out there.
That's a lot of mini display ports.
Quality.
That's a
Apple
god awful amount of mini display ports.
We said this last time about Apple's whipping Intel on part numbers for their CPUs that they don't sell to anybody else. So I'm not going to disqualify that statement. I'm going to stick by it.
Okay. It's bold.
Vega sure is long-legged and long-lived. Mm-hmm. We've seen that for a long time, and Vega's going to make its comeback not only in this product, but in the integrated Ryzen 4000 series. So
yeah,
they just can't get their GPU stuff together. I mean, oh well, I guess that's what happens when you invest all your R&D at CPUs. and kind of put everything else on the back burner, which admittedly has worked out pretty well for AMD. But yeah, they're still in the midst of pumping up their GPUs.
What's going on with Radeon Technology Group, Josh? Why don't we have Big
Not
Navi
much.
yet?
Big Navi.
It Rome was not made in a day. No, it took about 3 years.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's going to be the same thing with GPUs. Is that the stuff is it's like I was talking to the ARM guys the other day. They're when they have an editor's day, they kind of have to reset their minds back about 3 years, because they started on this stuff essentially a couple of years ago, and then it all kind of came to fruition, and then after that, it's all verification and getting everything going so that it can be productized. And so they've got 2 generations of stuff that's sitting in their heads that they're still working on, while the stuff that they're announcing is all finished up and has been for a long time. And so it's the same thing with AMD, is they've got these products in the pipeline, and it just takes a while. And if you throw $100 million at R&D, you're not going to see that pay off until 3 to 4 years from now. And so it's going to take a while for AMD to get back up, because they really haven't been making money in probably, until the last 2 years, where they could actually start pumping these things up. So yeah, we've got some crumbs coming our way, but it's going to be it for a while.
Does that mean you're going to be writing something up about that 768G? I assume that's what you were talking to them about?
No.
Oh.
I don't even know what the 768G is.
It's Qualcomm?
Yeah.
Snapdragon.
Well, yeah. ARM.
Yeah.
Built on ARM.
ARM.
Just like almost everything.
You know what isn't built on ARM technology?
No,
tell us.
I don't know.
Intel's 10th generation desktop processors.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that. I almost
They're
forgot
built
about
on
it.
Intel technology.
Hey, you could pre-order those things.
Oh,
You can.
wow.
And if you're like most people, you're on Newegg constantly refreshing the page and hitting auto notify to see when you can score your
packaging.
Core i9 10900K for just $529.99. Now that initial price, we never really know prices until we see them in retail, obviously, or e-tail. But the $488 price was the 1,000 unit tray price. So obviously retail it's going to be a little higher. Looks like it's going to be $529.99. And I got an email blast from Newegg about this a few days ago. Click on it, and of course, this is the processor that's sold out. Sold out immediately. I have no idea how many they had to sell, but they're sold out currently. But
some ginger bought them all to pump up the numbers.
Probably. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was able to. Out of stock though.
Jim,
no, not even an auto notify on the i7.
Ooh.
Jim, why don't you throw that? There you go. Oh, nope. Sorry. I just threw a picture in the chat. I think we should throw that up.
Oh,
$999.
$998.
$998.
Why don't you get 2? Why not get for you and a friend? Available $998. Not even $999. That's, why be greedy?
How does it ship May 16? Who is this? There's a lot of unanswered questions here. But hey, the 10th gen processors, they're real. They're at retail. They're not that far above the 1K price.
Can you buy a motherboard yet? Are those actually, I know that they've been announced, but are they actually available?
It's a good question. I don't know if any people
have them. Today I didn't see any.
Special people have them.
Yeah, I'm special.
You can pre-order them. Let's see. This ROG Maximus 12 Hero Wi-Fi is pre-order for $399.99.
I'm sorry, is that a $1,300 motherboard?
It sure is.
Oh, that Aorus Extreme, or is it Aorus? Aorus? I don't know.
I always thought it was Aorus.
Okay, that sounds fine. I'm struggling to understand the difference between these two Asus boards, though. How is the Maximus 12 Hero? Oh, I see. The other one's the Extreme.
Yeah.
Man, that Extreme is an expensive board. Holy crap! I will take better care of it.
Is bad things. Releasing a $600, $700 motherboard. Now Intel had to one-up them with a $1,200 motherboard.
We're dropping the price on the processors, but wait till you see our motherboards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The motherboards have to be pretty beefy. The power delivery needs to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the total platform cost is fairly high with it.
I'm going to be real curious and cooling with these puppies.
I sense you're making excuses.
No, I just think it's kind of funny. Like if you were to buy into this platform right now, you get the rumors are you get one more CPU. You'll get what is it? Alder Lake?
Oh, okay.
Or I can't remember the name of it. Whatever the next architecture is. On this LGA 1200, and then that's it. And in the past, a lot of AMD platforms have been kind of one and done. Like you buy, what was it? 7th gen was on the 200 series, and then immediately you went to Coffee Lake and you had to be on a 300 series board, right? And so like Z170 went to Z270 and H270, and then it went to the Z or like 300 series, and then and then
390.
If you wanted a 9th gen, didn't you have to move up to Z390 to support those?
You had to flash 70 series.
Okay.
Some you could flash, not all, if I recall.
I just think I look at that, and that's just the way Intel users live. If you want a new processor, you generally have to buy a new motherboard. And then it wasn't on the list, but the outcry among at least a very vocal group of people about AMD and Ryzen compatibility, and people who have just learned that there is such a thing as a BIOS ROM size are now up in arms about the fact that there is.
Right. That's a conspiracy theory. You can actually fit as much as you want on any ROM chip ever.
And you know what? You know what people have suddenly realized?
I learned that on Johnny Mnemonic.
You just sort of overfill it a little bit and it keeps going. There's some side effects, but it's fine.
Yeah. People have suddenly realized that if their ROM size wasn't big enough for the 4000 series CPUs, that the computer they own right now suddenly stopped working.
It's true. I mean, because you have to make a decision. Do you want your computer to function, or do you want your computer to be upgradable? And you can't have it both ways.
They just suddenly, with the knowledge of that in their head, their existing computer ceased to function.
No, it's because these people were all going to upgrade to a 4000 series the day it came out. Obviously, that's why they're holding on to a B370.
And not only that, but they all wrote to AMD, warning them. Months ago.
Okay, Josh, that sounds a little snarky. Josh, that sounded snarky.
Well, you know, all that snarkiness. I've got to go. It is Patch Thursday.
'Tis that time.
And I was only pulling this whole thing down. I mean, me trying to explain how those tensor cores worked, being so incredibly wrong. I can't.
But even when we're wrong, it just makes us more relatable, I guess.
Something like that. Yeah, professional.
And someone will tweet about it.
The professionalism is overrated. Josh,
they're going to run away.
No bad publicity.
Patch well.
Patch swiftly, patch well.
Josh walks into that. What is the phrase?
That's Johnny
Sweet night or something. All right. Let's talk about some rumors from the rumor mongers. I won't call them that. WCCF Tech has a mixed history in the rumor department, but they are talking. They're reporting. This is a reliable source, though. The Tom Apisak, everybody's favorite Twitter data miner. The Ryzen 9 4900U CPU, and I've actually seen this rumor from a few places. It's what can you tell me about this? I have not paid attention to this rumor. This is the 8-core Renoir. Again, another mobile processor using Vega graphics. Vega won't die. Enhanced Vega, though. Remember, it's enhanced Vega.
It's gonna be fast and not draw a lot of power. Reasonably fast, 4.4 gigahertz, 16 threads. It's going to be nice.
So the U designation the same as Intel. So this is 15 watts rather than the configurable 35, 45 watt like the 4900H is.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the variant that's in? Okay, the HS. The HS was the variant I'm thinking of. Not U. So they have, they have the H, which is 45 watts, the HS, which is 35 watts, and now they're going to have a 4900U with Intel generation-ish kind of clocks. to make this happen. So 1.8 gigahertz base up to 4.3 gigahertz boost, thus enabling them to hit a 15 watt TDP, which 15 watts, if TDP is calculated the same way as everybody else is, that's at 1.8 gigahertz. So if you actually are boosting to 4.3, this is going to have to be a little overbuilt. It'll do great in a video playback test. But
it's going to be a thick boy laptop. Yeah.
Which is funny because it's a 15 watt CPU. It's fun. We need to throw away TDPs. TDPs are all kind of a joke at this point. I have to agree with Ian on this one at Non-Tech. I think he recently posted something to that effect, like TDPs are a joke. Or maybe it was an older article when I was reading about Skylake just for fun the other day.
Oh, it still stands. You got TDPs, you got SDP, you've got the other SDP.
Because if you go into a BIOS, like a UEFI setup, and you can look at power limits if you have that option available to you, and you can look at hard numbers like what is the maximum power limit, what's the duration of that, and they get pretty high. You can pump it up pretty freaking high, but it's not. This TDP number is just. It kind of helps you understand. Oh, this is sort of that class of product. But I would look at 15 watts and think, oh, thin and light. But there's no way you're putting
a 45 watt part in a thin and light.
Yeah,
a
clock down 45 watt part.
Yeah, there was a point when you could look at a heat sink and it would be rated, a TDP, because back then it was actually meaningful.
Yeah.
Do you see any PR on any heat sinks or water coolers lately that actually list that?
I'm looking for a box because Be Quiet.
They'll give you supported process.
Put it on there. I don't think Cooler Master does. Be Quiet will say I think the Dark Rock Slim says 180 watts right on the box. The bigger ones like the Pro says 220 watts on the box, and then the big Dual Tower says 250 watts on the box. But is that rated TDP or maximum dissipation? So we'd have to ask them, and then.
And how many pluses does it have beside it?
Right.
140 watt plus TDP.
Those are different pluses. I mean,
well, at this point, they're about the same.
Yeah, with how much clamping force. It will do this much with this many fans in this size water cooler with this kind of thermal paste with this much clamping force, or is whatever the force is against a CPU when you mount it. Mounting force. So yeah,
and room temperature is defined as 400 and some degrees Kelvin, no more, no less.
Can you give us some uplift? Okay, I was going to ask you about this anyway. The Thunderstruck thing, the latest security vulnerability.
Oh, this is a fun one. I like this one.
Yeah. Do you want the good news first?
Is this
or the
actually?
Bad news first?
How about? Well, what's the bad news?
If you've got Thunderbolt. Because Intel makes Thunderbolt. There are a couple of prototypes that were done by other companies, which you might have your hands on, just because you're that one person that has to point out that you've got one that's not Intel. But yeah, if you've got Intel Thunderbolt 1, 2, or 3, it is unfortunately physically insecure. It's not something that can be fixed by a firmware update. It is a hardware issue. However, one of the nice people at Edelman reached out to me and mentioned that Intel has published a response to the research that was done by the university that I don't quite have up right now yet. That in theory, there is a new kernel direct memory access protection that can mitigate against these. So Windows 10 1803, and good Lord, get off that one. Or Mac OS 10.12.4, which is, I don't know which name that would be. Sebastian, you might.
10.12 is High Sierra, I believe.
Yeah, okay, so it's one of the newer High Sierras.
That's Sierra,
researchers,
sorry. 10.12 is Sierra.
Okay. So the researchers from Eindhoven University weren't able to demonstrate a successful attack if this was fully implemented. On the other hand, they were able to demonstrate attacks against everything else on the planet. And essentially, if they're able to get access to the system, it's a permanent thing because they're actually writing to the Thunderbolt controller and are able to hide it because there is no security mitigation to say, hi, my firmware has been changed and now I'm, sort of just giving people direct access to your DMA and they can write whatever the hell they want, and irrevocable. You would literally have to pull the chip out of it and replace it with another one. It's ridiculously terrifying because once they've got it in there, they can then clone. Long story short, your Thunderbolt devices register themselves under your current user as an authorized user. Once this is in, they can add fake Thunderbolt devices, and because you can chain Thunderbolt, this means they just slap one little thing on there, and they've got complete and utter control over your system, which is just, what you look for in your hardware.
As a technique, what they're taking advantage of is DMA, and DMA stands for direct memory access. And what that allows host versus client devices to do, or actually it's called host adapter mode when they're doing this, is that it takes the CPU out of the mix, which for the most part, unless there's some low-level watchers going on, it actually is really great from a transfer perspective. It was designed to speed up transfer of data from intelligent devices like those hung off of dare I say SCSI, or Thunderbolt.
I was going to say ATA.
No, that isn't. That is a poll.
Hey, come on! Remember UDMA?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And was that on 8? Was that on 100? Did that come out on 133?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, I think it was 133.
133. All right. So anyway, what this was designed to do is obviously speed up transfers between a storage device and memory. So hey, fantastic! We're not going to bother the CPU with this. We're just going to read some data, whatever device it is, whether it's a camera, a hard drive, or a capture card, or whatever. And we're going to stream it right into memory and not bother the CPU. So the CPU is spinning along, doing its own thing, and poof, the data shows up in memory, and then the program that was asking for the data gets control handed back to it. Man, all my data's here, and the CPU is chugging along, and your user interface was smooth, and everything was great, and people loved it. The downside, this is part of the downside, is that if you can pretend to be a nefarious device, which isn't that hard, slightly more difficult on Mac because you have to have a blessing. They're like UUID keys in order to get configured into Mac OS. These devices have direct access to memory and can pretty much do whatever they want because that's part of the designed-in DMA protocol. It's designed in.
Mm-hmm. So you've got all full disk encryption. You don't care.
Doesn't matter.
You've got BIOS level security protection. It don't care. It doesn't talk to it. It's just doing direct memory access. As you're saying,
yeah.
It doesn't even talk to the things where most of your security is baked in.
Right.
So the good news
bypasses it all by design. So yeah. The good news.
This requires physical access to your machine. This cannot be done remotely in any way, shape, or form. And essentially what the attack is that, and if you were watching the video side, you've seen, but if you're on the audio version, you need to unscrew to be able to get inside. You need to attach a flash programmer with a specific clip so that you can interface directly to that Thunderbolt controller. So it's quick. I mean, the way the researchers described is if they've got 5 minutes alone with your machine, this will happen. Problem being that, if someone's had 5 minutes of uninterrupted access to your machine, there are so many fun things that they could do to make your rest of your life completely and utterly miserable. So it's not likely you're going to see this, but if it happens, this is a terrifying thing. It's irrevocable. It will skip every bit of encryption, every bit of baked in, close to the metal security software you've got. It doesn't care. So, honestly, it's a good advice. Just don't let strangers sit alone with your hardware.
Well, yeah, not if you have anything of value on your machine.
Right in the port.
Yeah.
Put that right.
There you go.
Put that right in the
That'll
port.
do it.
That'll fix it right there.
A little bit of epoxy.
This is not working.
Jeremy, this is the selling point for an Apple laptop because they use those weird pentalobe screws that you can't ever find a driver for, and nobody's gonna. It'll take them 10 minutes to find the driver to open it, and then
right back there, that yellow box. They're not that hard to find.
Yeah, I know they're not hard to find. I mean, so if you're already equipped to do this, and you have the second machine and everything's ready to go, yeah, you could do this in a few minutes, but I find these sorts of exploits, just personally, to be a little overblown. They make good headlines, but at the same time, it's like, okay, they need access to my machine, then they need to actually get direct access and connect things to my board. It's not like somebody could just plug in a USB drive and I'm pwned. It's, well, we need pin access.
No, that's a different vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right, but yes, they can do that too.
Do you not understand the concept of fear and panic in order to control people? Perhaps you've never heard of that. It's kind of new.
No, it's not like a theme right now or anything.
Well, I just wonder if you'd heard of it.
I don't live in a state that is consumed by fear and mistrust of.
So this is totally new. But anyway, that's headlines, and hey, you're going to get hacked if you don't take your computer to the bathroom every time you leave your desk. So just do that.
Yeah.
So moving on, AMD has relaunched GPUOpen. And I did not read up on this at all. Scott wrote this up. Does anybody have any thoughts about this?
I did. And I think the important points here is that AMD is partnering with an open source mechanism to gain access more directly to their GPU, which if anybody's ever programmed hardware, and I've had to do it for capture systems and scanners and cameras and printers and stuff in the past, it's a pain in the butt, especially when you got to do it directly because you're talking to memory and different memory spots and reading stuff out and clocking stuff and making sure that things come and go in a timely fashion. It's a real pain. So AMD, besides the software, AMD sponsoring something like this is really great. But putting it in as out there as open source and giving people access to, as Scott tried to emphasize and said, open source ambient occlusion. And if people aren't familiar with that, what that is when you're shooting essentially virtual light rays against objects. And so it's not just 2D space, obviously 3D space is when light interrupts, an object interrupts the light ray and it occludes other objects in the scene. So having that open source and being able to program that directly is actually really cool. It's actually really, really cool. But my favorite thing about what they did was what they are calling their memory visualizer, which if anybody's ever programmed anything complex that is grown to the point of where it sort of has a mind of its own, you are often surprised when things fail within it and you start to trace what's going on and looking deeply into the internals. This sounds dumb, but it's often surprising to find out what a complex program is actually doing. So this aspect of that they just released yesterday to peer deeply into what's going on inside of their memory subsystem and how what you're putting into the graphics card is being mapped, how much space it's taking, relatively speaking. You guys have probably seen the file mappers that allow you to sort of crawl through a disk and it shows you relative size of things and, hey, what's this? Open it up. And it gives you a visual representation of all that. Well, this is a mechanism for doing that when you're programming a graphics card, which is invaluable for figuring out what your program is actually doing. And it can reveal some very surprising things. So this is my favorite thing that they released in an open source, easily accessible way. Tomorrow is a developers conference, essentially a Build It conference. And this is tomorrow, Friday the 15th, as virtual, of course. Where they go over their tools chain, their design, open source design stack for porting or creating your image processing systems into their card. They've got some really clever stuff going on, which would be great to learn about, such as being able to do their processing asynchronously. Back when I was doing a lot of embedded programming, you tend to process graphics using planes or in like an XY coordinate system. And you would sort of had to process them kind of in a row or top to bottom or as a grid. The way that you can program image or rasterization access or scene processing is asynchronously, which means they can have portions of the graphics card and in an open source way, have it process things all over the scene and all over the rasterization at the same time for doing different effects and sampling rates for texture mapping and rasterization scaling and stuff like that. So it's really cool. This is sort of programmer deep. If people aren't into that, then this doesn't mean anything to them. If you are, then this is pretty cool. So thanks, Scott.
So if you know, a company was to release a graphics card that had, you know, memory that didn't all run at the same speed, this would show you that?
You know what? You could probably see address mapping, because those two areas of physical chips would be mapped differently into your address space. If you knew and it was consistent, they didn't do address randomization or anything, and there's no reason for them to do that inside a GPU. You got to know where stuff is. It's not like CPU. Well, maybe in some ways it is. You know, I was just thinking of address randomization or address location randomization. But yeah, if you knew how it was being mapped in, you could see. Yeah, sure.
Well, you could actually map it that way.
Yeah. So you could visualize
the crap
where
you don't actually need to worry about can get dumped over there, and the rest of it can go on the full speed stuff.
Or what you would be surprised to find out is where you're putting stuff, where your whatever it is you're programming. Where am I storing this? Oh, I just told it to just put it where the first available was. If I use these extra parameters of my hey graphics subsystem, store this texture for me. If I use the extra parameters to say, hey, put that in low memory because I'm not going to need that for a while, then you can optimize your programming. And that's very important to understand what's going on and to get the best out of your hardware.
I don't know what 90% of what you just said was. Let's talk about this. I don't know if this is crowdfunded. This is a crowdfunded monitor. Gaming.
I think I want one of these
from I have never heard of this before now. Eve Devices in development is the Spectrum monitors, apparently designed by gamers and the Eve community. Their goal is to make the best gaming monitor in the world. And it looks like just a normal 27-inch 1440p gaming monitor, I guess. It's made with an LG display panel. The numbers are not insane. I mean, obviously, it's very good range. It's a variable refresh monitor. It's 48 to 144 hertz. So that's good. You'd like to see it lower than 48, ideally, but it's G-Sync compatible, certified, and it's a FreeSync Premium Pro.
IPS at 1 millisecond.
Yeah, that is impressive. Now it says HDR10, display HDR 400 certified. Is this? I doubt they are hitting the 1 millisecond number with. Well, I don't know. I doubt this has local dimming, but so an IPS display without local dimming is not going to have very good HDR. But I'm not seeing that anywhere.
Are they saying
perfect upscaling? That looks
are they
good.
putting it out there as professional HDR type quality, or are they saying
I'm missing the point entirely as Jim is trying to steer me back on track for us? The whole point.
I was waiting for that.
That HDMI 2.1,
my friends.
Monitor. Well, may I ask why this needs to be HDMI 2.1 if it's QHD resolution 144 hertz?
I guess they have a 4K version. They've got a 4K variant.
4K 144. There we go.
Yeah, see? Now you're cooking with pixels.
And that is amazing.
That's bandwidth, baby.
Yeah. And to be honest, QHD at 240 is still...
Yeah, 240 QHD. Come on. Give it to them. That's pretty good.
That's good. That's good. I know that
man.
they're
1
not
millisecond.
alone there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but 1 millisecond what? 1 millisecond from one shade of gray to another shade of gray.
It's always gray to gray. It's always gray to gray.
Now, which grays and what they went through.
They don't say.
But
negative 128 to positive 128.
Is it one of their 10-bit grays to another gray? Because there's a lot of shades of gray in 10-bit.
No, man, it's 4 bits of gray. I'm making that up. I don't know.
Yeah. It's all gray, man.
What are the prices on this?
4 bits is all you need, dude. 4 bits.
These prices are
$629 for the big one.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Actually, I think that's subtracting the $100 placeholder fee.
Wait a minute. Doesn't come with a stand. They're taking a page out of Apple's.
Oh, Apple will sell you one. Don't worry.
Oh,
They only want $100 for their stand, though. So due today, I'd have to put down a $100 deposit to reserve one of these things.
Yeah,
and I could be the proud owner. No. It looks metal, though. The stand is nice. I have to admit, this
it looks
a
metallic.
matte black-looking monitor with a... I want to call this a satin finish.
Stop. The stand is sexy as hell.
It is. I'm not going to lie.
It is.
It's not Apple level, but it's not
$1,200.
No. But it's got that svelteness to it.
This has been one of the big things we've been waiting for. Like, for the longest time, it was the fact that our SSDs went faster than the SATA bus did. Now, it's the fact that we could have 8K TVs. We could have insanely high refresh rates. But, the HDMI is letting us down. The DisplayPort is letting us down. It literally doesn't have the bandwidth to do it. HDMI 2.1, it's here. After I honestly don't. It's been years, since we've been waiting for a new one. We've seen incremental ones with an A or a B in that, but it's helped a little bit. But if you want proper 10-bit color, if you want 4x4x4, you want 4K, and you want a significantly high refresh rate. Well, good luck buying the video card that can push that. But on the flip side, the fact that you've now got a monitor that can handle it, and you don't have to worry about it for a couple of years, even when the RTX 10928 Ti comes out.
Oh, stop. The Radeon Pro VII will drive 4, 8, 16 8K monitors. I don't know how many it was. It was like 6.
It'll drive them. It'll drive them beautifully. It just won't game on them particularly well.
No. So you don't really need much of a card nowadays for it.
I'm looking at this, and it seems like they've made a mistake, because I thought, having been lectured a little bit about this, that real gaming is done at 1080p high refresh. That competitive gaming, people who want 240 hertz want 1080p.
There's an article I could steer you towards an article where there's a nice write-up. Maybe you haven't read it.
I see. I have not.
Yeah. I'll
live in a bubble. Later. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is what gamers want. Gamers want these monitors. These are to gamers specs. It's QHD and 4K. Like every other enthusiast, we want higher. But they're forgetting that I saw, who was it in the chat who must have 20. Oh, you. No, not you. Who was? Oh,
That's
Kent is in here. I
must have 21 by 9.
Kent says 21.9. Well, yeah, Helms agrees. There's a lot of people
that's
who,
a normal
once they
complaint.
see an ultra wide monitor, that's become sort of the new enthusiast monitor, because you think about the old days of multi-display setups, and you can have essentially the same thing with this massive 3 or 4 foot wide thing on your desk where you're just right in the middle of the action. And
I'm watching you on one right now.
Yeah. See, I feel like
that damn Dell still hasn't shipped.
Oh my God, really?
Wow.
Yeah, I ordered it in February, and no, it was February 22nd.
Oh.
I feel like 14 or 1080p high refresh for competitive gaming. And then you have ultra wides and high refresh or variable refresh 1440p monitors. There's a lot of like FreeSync and G-Sync 1440p monitors out there.
Sure.
And then beyond that,
well, for the technology right now, you can do just about anything at 1440p.
Anything above, even some of the ultra wides, they're too high a resolution to be driven at high detail levels at native panel resolution with current GPUs anyway. And we're out of the era of multi-GPU. It's just not supported the same way it used to be. And it's been all but abandoned by the GPU makers. So it's not like you can throw two 2080s at the problem.
Right. Jacob isn't selling me that $120 NVLink anymore.
No. And they were really pretty.
They were. I will give them that.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like when you get up to the really high resolutions like 4K, try to game 4K 144. I don't think that it's HDMI 2.1 that's holding you back, is my point.
Hey, what are you driving it with anyway?
Yeah, exactly. A Radeon 7. It has 16 gigabytes of high bandwidth memory.
I was just going to say, I read enough comments that I think people need a refresher on the correlation between monitor refresh rate and frames per second, or how fast their video card needs to spit out frames. I don't think people actually always get the strange correlation between those things.
I feel like the TV industry has ruined it for people because I'm literally
yes,
yes.
a TV that I bought in 2010. It was a high end. It's an LG Infinia TV. So I think it's the LE8500, fully like full array local dimming and stuff. It was one of the highest end LCD TVs 10 years ago. And on the box, I remember when I took it home, it said 240 right on the box. Like, I'm thinking this is super high refresh rate.
Whoa.
So what it really is, I think it's a LG IPS panel. It's a 47-inch IPS display. And it's a 60 hertz panel with I believe it's 60 hertz. It's either 60 hertz or it's 60 hertz input. It might be bumping it up to 120, but then it does backlight blinking to give you the effective 240. Yeah. There's all these tricks. Like, you might have something
remember P versus I? Interpolated versus progressive?
Oh, sure. Yeah, progressive versus interpolated.
It's more or less pulling that crap again.
So, like, this monitor, I can
it was interlacing, though.
It's a 60 hertz
on interopolate
display at that point. If you buy a high refresh display, it will present to your operating system, if it supports it, the option of moving up to some crazy high refresh rate, like 144 or 240 or 320. But at that point, if you are playing a game and your graphics card at whatever resolution the monitor is, if you're trying to go native resolution with your monitor so it looks really crisp, good luck actually sending 144 frames consistently to the display.
Yeah.
And if you're not,
that's what I'm talking about.
You're going to have the same issues that you'd have with any other display at any other refresh rate. You'd have the same kind of tearing issues. Tearing is not just a 60 hertz problem. Tearing is a problem that affects any non-native display refresh.
Yep.
So
you can drag a window around fast enough to do it.
Yeah. But they're variable refresh, so I will hand it to them. I mean, at least they're doing it right. The problem is you'd invest in this monitor now thinking I'm future-proofing, which is why you would do it, because you're getting the newer display connectivity. It's got more than enough bandwidth for the next several generations of GPUs. But you're never going to even come close to. You're just going to be running at a lower refresh all the time with your variable refresh. Is my point. You'll be at like 85 or something. And it'll be good enough, but you could save a lot of money and buy a cheaper monitor and do the same thing.
I mean, future-proofing has been a laugh for a long time, but it's never been worse than now.
Right, because why would you invest in IPS now? Is IPS really the future? IPS. What about micro LED? What about lower cost OLEDs? What about,
Yeah, maybe.
The industry moves slowly, but...
Well, OLEDs were more looking at a cheaper way to make them and a significantly less poisonous way of making them.
Yeah, that's a...
They had some longevity issues as well with burn-in.
Well, fair, but it'll happen.
Speaking of burning, I'm trying to make a segue here.
Nice.
Backblaze.
Yeah.
This is fire.
Yeah.
I'm so mad that I
Backblaze.
missed this.
Hard drive.
I love this.
Hard drive stats are out, and once again, there is a standout name. It makes me sad because you think, because after the WD stuff, the controversy about the red drives, and obviously they're not using those capacities here. Let's see.
Well, they are. There's a 4 terabyte Toshiba that's an outstanding use. Those HGST drives, they're doing something right.
This means nothing to audio listeners, so whoever talks about this, I guess we should probably explain more of what we're looking at here. It's the annualized hard drive failure rates from Backblaze. So the reporting period was January 1st through March 31st of this year, and they give the drive count, like how many drives are actually in service, what size of what model, and how many failures, and a failure rate and a percentage. And I feel like Seagate, because they deploy more Seagate drives than anything else, is always going to have a higher failure rate, but the percentages are there. It's over 1% failure rate. It's not crazy, but they have tens of thousands of these drives deployed too.
60,000 drives ish, on Seagate's alone. right around something like that, 50,000 to 60,000 drives that they have in their chart here. And a failure rate of, I'll just pick the biggest one here. So they're running almost 37,000 drives. They have 3.3 million days of running at the 12 terabyte size. 126 failures is 1.37%. That's the standout failure number on this particular chart.
You remember
so
when
it's not
it
huge,
was approaching double digits back about 10 years ago?
I think that of these percentages as infection rates. I don't know why. Some reason.
Yeah.
I timed that poorly. I'm sorry.
You did.
I'm sorry about that.
I almost already got in trouble. It's fine. No, but and it was just joking. It wasn't serious. But no, like the failure rates have dropped significantly. It's Agreed. A weird sort of a fetish, but I love watching the Backblaze failure reports. And it does, directly relate to my day job as well. But you find that, strangely enough, the more popular drives, the ones that are selling millions versus thousands, do have a higher failure rate. And there's a very damn good reason for that, because there are more of them out there. And when there's a failure, for the most part, they have built-in recovery options. They have no questions asked replacements. And for the vast majority of it, they're far underneath the mean time before failure. Like MTBF is still inflated, to say it differently. They're saying, worst case scenario, this is about the mean time before the average drive is going to die. We're nowhere near that anymore. It used to be a good benchmark to look at and go, yeah, you know what? That Desk Star, I don't know that we should invest in those anymore. But at this point, it's become very, very interesting to watch, because they're so much more reliable. And everyone's screaming about QLC and TLC and the fact that, it dies immediately. Well, there you go. There is a proof in the pudding that they don't. Yes, yours might have. And I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry if you lost all that data. But the overall trend is that, no, the hard drives and SSDs have gotten significantly more reliable. And I'm sorry, you sell 3.5 million drives and 1% of them, 1.3% of them dies. That's pretty damn good.
Well, there's hard drives on there with even better rates, but I personally enjoy. And that's good. He teed me up for this next bit, because I like to say that I like to ride the edge a little bit, because if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room. You know what I mean? So yeah. I like to use my drives deep into the reserve allocation blocks, if you know what I'm saying. So what if it's throwing a few hundred errors? There's spare blocks. So I really enjoy using my drives well beyond their MTBF. Now let's see what the problem is.
Yep. Oh, come on. Remember the argument back when, once drives hit about 10 terabytes, if you had to rebuild a RAID, there is no possible way you could actually rebuild it based on the failure rate percentage. And yet, there they are.
People stick multiple 10 terabyte hard drives and then back it with a dual core Celeron as a RAID controller.
Well, spend all the money on the hard drives, man.
Good luck, man.
Let's move away from hardware here and talk about software now before we wrap this up. Games. I see this category listed here. Games. Beginning with Halo 2 Anniversary, released for Master Chief PC Collection. So it's available now. I remember when this was being teased earlier this year. Came out on Tuesday, apparently. Has anybody played it yet?
I have not, but I would keep meaning to buy it. And I did not know that they were releasing them one at a time. I keep meaning to purchase the collection and start playing again. But I didn't know you didn't get them all. Actually, I'm a stupid. But yeah, apparently this just got released.
Didn't see that coming?
No, I'm a moron.
Did you see the Mafia remaster stuff? Like the Mafia.
That one I'm more interested in.
Yeah,
do tell.
It looks really good. This has obviously been a trend for a while. I was just getting excited about the Tony Hawk remasters that are coming in.
That
September.
looks great.
And I used to play a lot of Tony Hawk 1 and 2 on PlayStation, and to play with like next gen looking graphics with the same venues and stuff is exciting to me.
Did you see the side by side renders? Of course you did.
It's
Did
ridiculous.
they age Tony Hawk for the game?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. He looks appropriate. Although it's hard to tell. Like when I look back at the PlayStation version, he is represented by roughly 16 to 18 pixels total, I think. So it could have been old Tony Hawk back then. I don't know.
Right.
But the music was great.
I think this entire podcast should be rendered at that resolution, actually. That would probably improve it.
I think the more we downsample it, and please, Jim, do something here.
I've been a big proponent of that for a while.
Yeah. I think if we did this podcast...
You do not want to see us in 4K.
320 by 240 would be...
320 by 240. It's magical.
Yeah.
Remember? I think the playback mechanism should only be flash.
No.
What about HTML5? Wasn't that going to save us all?
Don't you feel saved? I know I do.
What else is coming out?
GTA 5
free.
Free.
I should log in and make sure I get it before the sale is over.
Is it worth it?
No. Because then you have to
The last time I played a GTA, it was a top-down thing.
Jeremy.
It was isometric.
This is one of the most popular games in the world, according to Steam surveys. And if you want to play it on Epic and deal with Epic plus Rockstar, because I'm guessing you still have to do the Rockstar Social Club DRM.
Yeah, well, I did that for Red Dead Redemption 2, so
I'll ask my son. My son just downloaded it today, and he spent all of his money on this. So I think he's upstairs playing it right now, as far as I know, and he's having a great time. It took him like an hour to download it. I don't know how big the thing was. It's gigantic.
You better end this podcast in the next 29 minutes so I can be sure to log into our Epic account and get it.
That's right.
Jim,
it's today.
If you're listening, add it to the Epic account because it probably already is there. Or we have it on Steam. I personally own it on Steam already anyway.
There's a real chance that we finish before midnight. I'm amazed.
I know. We're done. I mean, we could talk about whatever. I know you guys might have some picks. I decided to finally pick something, but cool. Let's go into picks of the week. We've covered everything. Jeremy, more games.
Oh, yes. Picks of the week. So I pulled this one out of my posterior. Although, if you've never played Stellaris, it's free this weekend, and there's a bunch of Paradox sales. Crusaders King 3 is awesome, but don't pre-order shit. Just don't. But have you ever played Alan Wake? Have you ever thought about playing Alan Wake? Because right now it's $2. It's a very interesting game. Oh, sorry, the collector's edition is $2. If you don't want the collector's edition, it's only $1.50. But it's an interesting take on first-person horror mystery weirdness. It's a fair amount of fun. It's well written, and you're gonna get your money's worth out of it. Seriously, like for $1.50, it's gonna be worth it. You should give it a shot if you haven't. If you have, well, check out Stellaris and the other Paradox stuff.
How can you not buy it for 90% off? $1.49. Just put it in your library and add it to all those other games someday you'll get to.
It's so embarrassing.
The more you buy, the more you save.
Oh my God, it works everywhere. I'm going to say that all the time.
I increasingly have gotten to the point where the only PC gaming I interact with is the stuff that I install and run specifically to benchmark. And because I'm benchmarking a lot of CPUs and GPUs, I just get so sick of the whole thing that I just go to the living room and turn on the PS4 if I actually want to play a game. So that's sad, and I probably shouldn't even admit that, but it's true. But speaking of PS4, I recently spent like 2 hours a night, I think it was, until I finally beat it. After I got my hands on a copy, but the Final Fantasy VII Remake is a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 4 exclusive right now. Not on PC yet. I don't know when that'll be.
Oh man. Isn't this like 1/4 of the game?
It's just Midgar. It's just the first part of the first disc.
Even a quarter of the game.
No, not even a quarter of the game. I don't know how many episodes they're going to be. I don't know if these people are going to live long enough to finish the game at the glacial pace this thing moves if you're comparing it to the original game. Because the original game, really, really fast paced. There are a lot of things like Wall Market in the original game is 2 screens.
Yeah.
And in Wall Market in this game, and I can't remember which chapter it is so confusing to me anyway, because it's like 2-stick control. You run around with the left stick and you can change the camera with the right stick. And I tried to have like camera auto follow, and it takes its sweet time, so I end up having to like manually turn the camera all the time, or else I'm watching myself walk sideways and watching myself walk towards the camera. But I was getting so lost in Wall Market because it's at night and there's alleys you have to go down, and the world feels huge. First of all, the graphics are stunning. It's Unreal Engine 4, not 5, but it's a really, really, really good looking game. And I was surprised that I actually liked the combat. I grew to like the combat system as I played. But when I started the game, I chose classic mode, thinking, oh, this will be closer to your old Final Fantasy VII with menus. And there's still an ATB meter that fills up, and there's still like options like using spells and potions and that sort of thing. But the classic mode is apparently equivalent to easy. So I found the game not to be challenging at all. Like, it wasn't until the very last chapter that I felt it was even possible to get a game over screen. So I need to replay it in a harder mode. You play through it all the way, you can unlock hard mode. I need to at least play it in normal mode because it was way too easy. But who knows how many years this will be the PlayStation 4 version, and it's just Midgar, but they've augmented it and added so much more stuff. But
they've stuffed it full of filler.
Yeah, some of it feels like filler. The side quests are just like fetch quests. Like, I lost my kitten. Can you help me find my cat? And you're wandering around the slums to find this little girl's cats.
Sorry, I fed it to a chocobo, but now it goes faster. So piss off.
Oh, you don't get to ride chocobos until.
Oh no, that's many discs.
Right, they do it early in this game. Like, I saw somebody complaining that you don't get chocobos till the end. Like, you don't even get chocobos in Midgar at all. Be lucky that there's a chocobo taxi service in Midgar in this game after you do the chocobo side quest where you catch these runaways. But anyway, it's if you have a PS4, I was lucky because I'm fortunate enough that I have
no chocobos were harmed in the filming of this.
I have a PS4 Pro and an HDR 4K OLED TV, and it just immediately goes into HDR mode and it looks just phenomenal, and the soundtrack is amazing too. So it's like orchestral versions of the same basic music, and then I didn't love all the changes they made, but I think it's on its own merit. It's a very good game, and I'll stop talking about it now. Brett.
Excellent. Right. Who doesn't need an external 1 terabyte drive for like $19? Right? I mean, that's pretty cool. $20, less than $20. It's not Thunderbolt, but you know what? If you spend $19, you can get no, you can you can buy a 1 terabyte drive, and what are you going to put it in? Well, you need a case. Why not get yourself a fancy aluminum case for $20? Why not smash them together for $39? So here it is. This is typically a Mac store. I get occasional emails from these guys because I buy Mac gear on a fairly regular basis. So this is a USB 3, fairly reasonable interface, 2.5 drive enclosure with a 1 terabyte spinny disk. Not terrible. $40. They only got 12 if they've got that many left. A little earlier this afternoon, they had 22.
That is impressive.
Yeah. So, if you get done with a 1 terabyte drive, then put your SSD in it. It's still USB 3. And it comes with this is unusual, which is what I like about these sort of external drives, is it comes with an external power port, which means that for those larger SSDs that might draw more than your port does, or spinny drives that will not, and I've seen this, unfortunately, multiple times, spinny drives will not untorque and spin up. Spin, not do their thing, not do the thing that they're sort of known for. Yeah, kind of like not doing the thing that they're supposed to do on port power. So it's often useful to give them a kick in the spin word direction with a external power wall wart. So yeah, decent enclosure, aluminium, tough stuff. Comes with a 1 terabyte drive. Aluminium.
That is a good deal, even if you just bought it for the case.
Exactly.
It's aluminium.
You know what? I looked it up actually.
Oh, are you going to start shucking cases again?
Reasonable aluminum cases are $20, so that was where I came up with my $19 drive, $20 case.
$19 for 1 terabyte laptop drive is not bad.
It's not bad.
It certainly beats Ryan's law.
$20 for a aluminum 2.5 external 3.0 USB with power port, also not bad.
All right, well, we did it. It's 11:39 Eastern time, and we're done.
Amazing.
I have nothing left to say.
Jim does not disavow us any longer.
I didn't have anything to say to start with, but I have even less to say now.
Well, there'll probably be something.
Yeah. We'll just keep going. I won't actually end it. We'll just go until Jim shuts it down.
Well, I expect him to throw up a picture of MC Hammer when he wants it done. When he wants it over, he's going to throw up a picture of MC Hammer.
Yeah, we couldn't use audio cues because that would have caused the podcast to be removed from YouTube, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, our podcast could benefit from a soundtrack. But we don't have one.
Definitely. Or a laugh track. One of the two. Either one. There were some people in YouTube chat who were wondering what we did with Jim's body.
We stuffed it into that little door.
The door thing.
Yeah.
He's in there. Yeah. He'll be fine though.
He's not dead.
Did you ever watch The Princess Bride?
Jim is very, very alive. Who hasn't watched The Princess Bride?
Exactly. And
anybody who's been dead, inconceivable.
Yep. Anybody who's been dead all day just has a bit of a stiffness to them. He'll be fine.
Yep.
There are DVD, Blu-ray, and Criterion Blu-ray copies of that movie in my house.
I think I only have the Blu-ray edition, or maybe the DVD, but yeah.
I haven't watched the Criterion yet. It's still sealed, but apparently it's an all-new transfer. They did like a 4K transfer of it.
Really?
Because it's Criterion doesn't release 4K like UHD Blu-rays, so they did a 4K transfer, which looks amazing, I'm told, and then put it on a Blu-ray. So
I find that as believable as the ROUSs.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, I've gotten to realize some of this, like, because you've read for years now. There's been these 4K transfers, like we transferred the film at 4K,
the original master tape,
right? And then you don't
bullshit.
You
upscale the VHS recording.
You be quiet.
I will say the final cut of Blade Runner, which came out on UHD Blu-ray before I think Blade Runner 2049 came out. That was using their 4K transfer from a few years ago that Warner Brothers commissioned. It looks phenomenal. I'm not wild about all the HDR effects they added, but you don't have to use those. But the transfer is so pristine on that. It almost looks too good because then you can see models where before it I don't know. It's close. It's close to being too good. If that's even possible. It looks better than your old HD DVD copy, that's for sure.
Ooh.
I still regret not buying the briefcase.
Uh-oh.
I think
we're getting a signal.
This is the subliminal.
Hammer time. Well, hey, if you're watching live, you still have on the East Coast at least 17 minutes to get your free copy of Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yep. And you should start downloading now. Is it from when you start it or from when you finish? That's a good question.
Finish what?
The download. It's not trivial.
The download? I think you just have to add it to your library. What are you talking about? Add it to your library, and then someday you could download it.
Okay, that's true. Okay, I did read that. You're right.
If you care.
You're right. It's hammer time.